Glory be to God. Glory be to God. Well, welcome to you. It's nice to be back. Most of you here were on retreat with us this weekend. And so I hope you had a nice break, a nice afternoon, and you took the time to do the work of integration. And integration, it really never stops. It really never stops. So I have to be careful. I have to make sure I do the announcements, not just slip into the teaching. Okay, so a couple important things about this coming week. So I'm going to be doing some traveling this coming week. And so there's going to be no Kundalini group, no meditation group on June 4th. This is 2025. And no satsang on June 8th. Now, the following week, I should be back, but I might not be. And so the following week is tentative. But I want everyone to know this with me. No news is good news. If I don't say anything, we're on. And if I do say something, I'm going to post it on Facebook. And I'll cancel it on Zoom anyway. But let's plan on it. Let's plan on being back here next week. Okay. Again, no Kundalini, no meditation June 4th, and no satsang June 8th. Now, and I know many of you in the Sangha are leading some of these student groups, and so if someone wanted to take over and do a meditation on Wednesday night, I think that's wonderful. When my teacher went out of town, we'd all get together, often at my house, and we just have a meditation together. It'd be a beautiful thing. And so if you guys want to get together, post something on Facebook, coordinate among yourselves. And please, with these student-led groups, I hope you're enjoying that. I hope you're enjoying being in the light, sharing of the light, giving of yourself. And this is really a grand experiment that we're taking part in. In the past, in so many traditions, there was just one person at the top, or, there's this grand hierarchy. Like right now we have a new Pope, Pope Leo. I have no idea anything about Pope Leo, but, that's a whole tradition with a whole hierarchy, and things can get kind of nutty when things are so hierarchical. I don't think I said that correctly, but anyways, I think you get the gist of it. So let's try to work together and share and play. And ultimately, this is how our world will transform when humanity begins to grow up and wake up and stand in the truth and give of themselves. Now, sometimes the greatest way to stand in the truth is to let the other win, to let the other be right, to lay down your life and let someone else go first. Someone else take the lead. And this is hard. It's hard, especially in this Western world where we're taught it's all about being right. It's all about winning. It's all about having the most and all that silliness. One of the greatest teachings of Jesus was him laying down his life and saying, okay, I'll lay down my life. And, it appeared that darkness won, but ultimately the truth always prevails. The truth always prevails. So anyways, we'll keep playing with these small groups and seeing it as an experiment and seeing it as a playful way to come forward and to share. For those of you who aren't on retreat, we're starting to experiment and play around with some music and Johann really, hit a home run. He just showed up and he played his guitar and he sang to us a song that he wrote. And I mean, it really touched me. It touched, so many of us in the Sangha. And so, we're going to play with that. We're going to see if we can find a way that we can all sing together somehow on Zoom. And I know we're going to have to work out the technology on that, but I look forward to that. I look forward to that. Yeah, it's such a gift, such a gift. And I'm always going to let, to follow up that first teaching, I'm always going to let someone else sing first. I'm never going to try to stand in the spotlight and sing because I have such a rough voice, a rough voice. In fact, I hope I can make it through tonight and not lose my voice because this whole retreat, I've been like right on the edge of losing my voice. I had a really bad allergies and a sinus infection, and had a tough time just keeping my voice together. So, anyways, okay. The next thing is if any of you are considering coming to our next retreat, July 13th through 18th at Kripalu, please sign up. We'd love to have you. And, I'm really looking forward to it. I know many of you are looking forward to it. And again, I can't speak more highly about it. It's such a great retreat center. I think it's probably the best retreat center in the nation. And, they do an outstanding job with hosting us. And there's great food and these big, wonderful grounds overlooking a lake, in the Berkshire Mountains in Massachusetts. Such a wonderful place. And I'm looking forward to being with you in person. In person. I love being with you all on Zoom, and I think it's just magical that we can tune in from all around the world. But there's just something so special and so powerful about being together in person. In person, and that's like I was so fortunate because that's all I had with my teacher. There was never a computer between us. It was always, just sitting in his presence. And most of the time, I got to sit in his presence in a temple that I framed up. That I framed up. Some other folks helped out, of course. I mean, a lot of people pitched in, but like I was, the main guy on the project, and there was just something really sweet about that. Really sweet about that to build a temple, for your teacher, and then to spend, it was probably about 5 years in we built it, but then to spend another, 15 and 20 years meditating in that temple is such a gift, such a gift. Yeah, there was definitely no hiding, no hiding there, no hiding because it wasn't like a giant church or anything. It's just a little temple, and but my teacher was right there, and if I moved an inch, he would see it. This little shift in my body language, it's just like boom, he could see it. He could see it. So, anyways, um, okay, yeah. So if you can come to the retreat, we're looking forward to it. We're really excited, and I just can't wait. Just can't wait. Okay. So there's two questions that got sent in, and I'd really like to get to those. But before we do, let's do what we do best. Let's shut down our eyes and open our hearts and begin to breathe deeply and fully. And most of you were on retreat, but some of you weren't. Either way, I invite you to notice what's here right now. What's here? So there may be little thoughts. We can see those and witness those. arising, this space of awareness, space of emptiness and freedom. We let the thoughts come and go. But as we feel into the body a little bit more deeper, just notice the feelings that are here. Sometimes our feelings are loud, sometimes chaotic. Sometimes our feelings can have a righteous tone. Sometimes they can have an unworthy tone. And from a space of love, let's give our feelings lots of room, lots of space. And because we're yogis, we're going to look at our feelings, look at our thoughts from a space of transcendence, a space where we don't take our thoughts, our perceptions, our feelings, our judgments, our opinions, our commentary. We're not going to take it so seriously. All of us have an egoic defense system. But in the depth of our being, we don't need to be defensive. As yogis, we know that the more defensive we are, probably the more deluded we are. The more we open and see life from the vast view. The closer we are to the truth. So choosing this vast view, choosing the path of love, the path of forgiveness, the path of compassion. And you'll notice as we walk in the direction of compassion, we notice your nervous system really relaxing, softening, opening. But the opposite is true as well when you walk in the direction of defensiveness, of guardedness, of righteousness. The ego becomes more contracted, and the sense of self becomes more solid. But in this moment, because we're just sitting here in the comfort of our own home, breathing and feeling, softening and opening, no reason to guard, no reason to defend, no reason to fight or to be righteous. We choose love, choose compassion. We choose this transcendent reality, vast, spacious, and free. So from this space of love, we soften and open the depth of radiance, which we are, moving beyond the personal into this primordial radiance. Every breath, breathing in and breathing out. Opening to the hugeness immensity of all of life. All of life. As we continue to open, experiencing this radiance of being, I invite you to soften more fully in the hara, allowing your consciousness to merge with the quiet depth of the earth. Opening, opening, opening. Forever opening. Yes. Surrendering all. Simply being open. Surrendering all. Simply being open. And so, bringing the palms to the heart, gently bowing the head. May all beings forever, forever open. The highest truth, light and love. Yes. Well, welcome everyone. Welcome to Satsang. And you have to forgive the audio tonight. One, I'm struggling to maintain my voice, and also we have a big storm that's rolling into Durango. I kind of live at the base of this big series of mountains, and sometimes the wind comes down and really hammers on my house and my neighborhood. And so forgive me if there's a lot of racket in the background. So two big questions. And what I liked about these questions tonight is both the questions I got were questions from individuals who were willing to acknowledge that they had been wrong, that they had been wrong. And that's, a sign of great maturity on the spiritual path. And we could acknowledge that I don't know, or I tried something and, well, it just didn't work. I tried something. I tried this way of being and it didn't work. It didn't work. If we want to be free, we have to really acknowledge that our egoic way, well, it's not the way. It doesn't know the way. It gets confused. It's been conditioned. And, it just didn't work out. It just didn't work out. And so both these ladies tonight were asking a question and saying they tried something and it just didn't work out. Just didn't work out. So let's see if there's another way. And that's what the Buddha taught. There's another way. Another way. And this way is going to be different than what we had originally thought. So it's hard to be on the spiritual path, if we don't have humility. A lot of people walk the spiritual path with righteousness. And boy, does that get them in all kinds of trouble. All kinds of trouble. Now on the retreat, I kept talking on and on, almost in a ridiculous and sometimes seemingly neurotic manner about this new show on TV. Maybe it's not new, it's new to me, called The Righteous Gemstones. And I like the name, The Righteous Gemstones. And it's the story of a bunch of pastors in the South, who are in charge of a megachurch. And the reason the show is a comedy is, well, you can see in the title, they are so spiritually righteous. They think they know. And they're just fools. They're fools. And that's what makes the show so funny is they have so much pride, so much arrogance. And time again, they have so much shadow. It gets them in lots of trouble. But if we're on a path of awakening, We're not going to lead with righteousness. We may lead with discipline. We may lead with effort in the beginning, but eventually it's going to be humility that carries us over the finish line. And so I really appreciate these two questions. The first one is from Catherine in Canada and BC, a good friend of mine, and always happy to hear from her. It's about shame. She says, Craig, can you speak about this subject? Like we all have the obvious signs, especially in my generation and those before, telling their children, you should be ashamed of yourself, as an example. And listen, I heard that all the time as a kid. And I want us all to think back, if you can remember just hearing that, you should be ashamed of yourself. And if you can remember when you heard those words, often there was a feeling like a streak of heat that would just rage through the body. This streak of heat. It was like there was part of your vulnerability like really lighting up and being on fire. And at the same time, especially if we were a kid, we would want to hide because we were like, oh, dang it, I did something wrong. Maybe I didn't think it was wrong, or maybe I got caught. Who knows? But mom or dad yelling at us, you should be ashamed of yourself. And the feeling of it, often was a feeling of rejection and unworthiness, and basically like, you're bad. You're bad is the energy of it. And, I don't think all parents want it to come off that way, but, that's how it comes off. It's this feeling where the child feels cut off from the love of mom and dad, cut off from the love of mom and dad. Some cultures have it in such intense ways, others not so much. Then it still tends to be fairly persistent. And some of the Asian cultures tend to still be running this one, but all cultures use it. All cultures use it. But hopefully, globally, we outgrow this. We outgrow this. Okay. She goes on to write, there's a quieter side of shame as I'm discovering, which was seeded from multiple attempts in childhood and certainly since then to connect and to be seen. Okay, so she's writing this like, I was a little girl and I was wanting to connect and I was wanting to be seen. And the internal crushing feeling when the other, in this case, I'm just going to guess mom, ignores, rejects, or otherwise withholds their affection. And so, this is one of the things that, normally when you're getting hollered at by mom and dad, they're not being affectionate. They're not being affectionate. And, sometimes when we're kids, it's just a confusing thing because we're getting yelled at, but we love mom and dad so much. We have full trust in them. We want to go give them a hug, but them being like, nope, you should be ashamed of yourself. You should be ashamed of yourself and you're in big trouble, in big trouble. I can remember when I was a little boy and I can remember the toy I had. It was called a Corolla Caddy. I think that's how you say it, Corolla Caddy. And so it was like basically it was a holder for crayons, like Corolla crayons, right? That's what they're called. And it had little paints and all this stuff on it. And it was just like this artistic set. It was like this little square thing, and it had the paintbrushes and the crayons and, maybe some markers and this and that. And I got it out in my room on the carpet, and I just started, I just like painting all over the place. And I got a bunch of paint on the carpet. And Anyways, it didn't work out so good for me. I got in big trouble. I got in big trouble. And I remember feeling the shame because my mom was basically like, "You're an idiot, son. Why did you get paint all over the carpet?" Because, you know, I think carpet's the worst idea. It's one of my least favorite inventions. But with carpet, it's just like, you get anything on it. It's a dirt sponge, and you get paint on it. And it's like, if you're a little boy, you're going to make a mess in your room. You're going to make a mess in your room. And my mom came in and told me, I was bad. I was bad. Okay, so she goes on to write. Um, I experienced this many times with my mother when I was small. She didn't have much space for me because she was medicated and overwhelmed. I get this, and I forgive and release her and thank her. However, some messaging got stuck in my little girl self. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I like this because, again, this is the taking responsibility, seeing that there's a message within me that got stuck. And this is a message that I believe, that I am somehow inherently wrong or bad. Well, the way we heal shame is by seeing the opposite, by seeing our innate divinity, our innate goodness, by seeing that what's inside is good, is good, is pure. Like when I look back at my little boy, the little boy I was, who painted all over the carpet, he was just a little boy. He wasn't bad. He wasn't wrong. And my mom could have called me an idiot. But in a sense, like when you're a kid, you kind of are an idiot. And it's not that you are an idiot. It's just that you just don't know. You don't know about carpet. You don't know that you can't paint on carpet. When you're a child, you have to learn all the rules of life. We normally learn the rules of life through failure again and again and again. I can remember another time I experienced shame was I was in kindergarten. It was in like the first couple of days of kindergarten. And the teacher gave us like these big kind of foam balls. And we were inside the classroom. And, I was a little boy. And so if someone gives me a ball, I'm going to kick that ball. I'm probably going to kick it as hard as I can. And I kicked that thing. It bounced off the ceiling. It bounced off the wall, bounced off her desk. It knocked over her coffee, all over her new dress. And, then the teacher screamed at my mom that I was an unruly child, but it's like, come on, lady, you're giving a kid a ball inside a classroom. What's he going to do? He's going to kick it. I didn't know I was just supposed to stare at the ball. I'm just supposed to stare at the ball and not kick it, not throw it. Someone had to tell me, hey, no kicking balls in a school, in a classroom. I had to learn that. And when we're kids, we don't know the rules. And so part of the healing of shame is forgiving yourself. So, Catherine, you spoke here about forgiving your mom. You need to forgive you for being a little girl and not knowing all the adult rules of life. And, this is a pretty crazy world. Often the adult rules of life are insane, or they're made up, or they're just bizarre. Like the other rule, I don't know if people do this anymore, but in the olden days, I can remember I'd go visit my grandma and she'd give me a little Coca-Cola and a glass. And I'd take that glass and I'd put it right down on the coffee table. And it's like, smack upside the head. Damn, son, use a coaster. I'm like, what the hell is a coaster? Like, what is a coaster? I'm a little boy. I don't know what a coaster is. Please forgive me. Please forgive me. So one of the ways we heal shame is we forgive ourselves for not knowing all the silly rules and expectations that adults have, that this world has, that this world has. I saw somewhere on social media This was last week or 2 weeks ago or something, you know, everyone's favorite, Mr. Donald Trump. He went over to, met with some king or some prince or something in the Middle East. And he sat down and they served the king or the prince, whoever the guy was, a cup of coffee. And they served, Mr. Donald one. And Don said, no, I don't want a coffee. I don't want a coffee. I don't drink coffee. And that's insulting to not drink the coffee. And on social media, they're trying to make him big and bad and wrong. Then look, if you need to find something wrong with Donald Trump, there's other things you can blame him for besides not taking a cup of coffee from the prince or whatever it is. But I've made that mistake. I sat down in Morocco in a carpet shop, a rug shop. Those beautiful Moroccan rugs, and they kept putting tea in my hand. And I was like, I don't want a tea. Like, quit giving me tea. Why do I have to drink tea? I don't want this tea. I'm not thirsty. And that was somehow offensive to the people because I wasn't being a good guest. I wasn't being a good guest. Forgive me. Forgive me. We heal shame through forgiveness. Through forgiveness, through forgiving ourselves for not knowing, not aligning with all the rules, the expectations of life. And again, most of those rules are pretty silly. Pretty silly. So, Catherine, I'm going to invite you to shift the messaging in your little girl self by telling her, hey, little girl, you are all right. You're okay. You're good just as you are. And if you make a mistake, that's A-okay. That's normal. That's normal. It's normal to make mistakes. It's normal to say the wrong thing. It's normal to take the ball in the classroom and just throw it if you're a little boy. If you're a little boy, it's normal. It's normal. You're not bad. You're not wrong. You're a kid. A kid. And I like to think of all of us here on planet Earth as kids. Like we're all just kids. Sometimes we try to become a serious adult. I've had a hard time pulling off that, being a serious adult. And because of that, I don't experience very much shame. Very much shame. But if you try to be a serious adult and you have to follow all the rules, and then you screw up the rules once upon a time, you're going to experience some shame. You're going to experience shame. But when you know it's okay to be human, it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to fail. It's okay to fail. This is a world where we are all learning. And when we have this attitude, shame cannot take root within our consciousness. But if we believe what our parents said, in this case, it was a medicated and overwhelmed mother. If we allow that mother to define us or to direct us or to show us the way, chances are that's going to create confusion within us. And so sometimes before we hurry up and forgive mom, sometimes it can be helpful developmentally to acknowledge, well, maybe mom was wrong. Maybe she didn't know how to parent. Maybe the message she gave me was not the right message. And then we ask, what would be the right message? Well, how about I love you and it's okay? And it's okay to fail. It's okay to make some mistakes. It's okay to drop the ball. It's okay to kick the ball. It's okay to kick the ball. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. We live and we learn. So the big thing, like when we have burning shame within us energetically, when you feel that shame, to breathe into the fire, breathe into the heat of shame, and breathe and feel and open. And we do this again and again and again. And a beautiful practice that we can play with is we can imagine just breathing in cool, like clean, calm, fresh air into that heat. We continue to breathe this cool, clean, fresh air into the heat until the heat cools down. Cools down. So these are deep, full belly breaths, feeling the heat. Now, when we work with something like shame, often as we begin to breathe into it, if we're doing this consciously, intentionally, one of the things that we'll find is initially, as we come into contact with the shame, it will heat up. It'll heat up. It'll become more hot and more claustrophobic. And of course, we might have those flashes, those memories of being such a bad little girl, or in my case, a bad little boy, and continuing to breathe. And I like to see the eyes of the child, to see the innocence of the child, and to really remember this, that I am good. I'm not a bad, no good, rotten scoundrel. I was just a little kid. And that little kid is good, is pure, is innocent, is divine. So we hold on to this imagery of being good while we breathe through the heat. And we do this until the heat, eventually, it begins by heating up. And then with some time, it begins to cool down. And this may take 5 minutes. It may take 45 minutes. It may take 3 months of breathing into this claustrophobic feeling of shame, but eventually it melts. It melts. Now, the beautiful thing about when we do this practice, we end up with this very tender experience. It's a tenderness that knows. It's like one of the sweetest forms of humility. It's a tenderness that knows I've made lots of mistakes and I'm human and it's okay. I'm so good. I'm so innocent despite all my mistakes. And there's a knowing, there's like a quiet strength in it, knowing that I'm going to make some more mistakes in life. And all the people around me, they're going to make countless mistakes also. And it's all okay. It's all okay. And we hold on to this paradox. We don't have to hold on to it. We realize this paradox of knowing that we are all good. And we're also all human and all learning. And we're going to make all kinds of mistakes as we continue to live our life. And with that, there's like the opposite feeling of claustrophobia. There's this feeling of relief that it's okay. It's okay to fail. It's okay to fail. It's okay. It's okay to be human. It's okay to show up to school and to not know all the answers. And that's what Earth is. It's a giant school. Just a giant school. So, Catherine, thank you so much. Thank you for your humility. One last thing I'll say, and this isn't necessarily towards Catherine, but to everyone. I mean, come on, all these teachings are for everyone because we all have the same mind. But there's a thing that happens. Catherine wrote this thing about wanting to connect with mom, and then the internal crushing feeling when mom would ignore or reject and otherwise withhold affection. So there's this dance that happens in life. It's a dance of the divine mirror. That when we believe in shame, when we have a long history with shame, we tend to grow up and we tend to engage in relationships with others who will meet us with a feeling of shame, meet us with a feeling of superiority, a feeling of you are wrong, or you're not good enough, or I'm better than. And so when we have a long history of shame, if we don't work with the shame, if we look at our current relationships, oftentimes that cycle repeats itself, where we find ourselves with people who shut down and withhold affection. And boy, does that hurt. Boy, does that hurt. Because we experienced it with mom, and then in the modern age, we experience it with, our best friend, or, our partner, or our boss, or whoever it is, our neighbors, whoever it is we're dealing with. But when you do your healing work, you'll find that you radiate such innocence and love and forgiveness that the people around you tend to mirror that as well. Not always, but often. Okay, beautiful question. Okay, so the next one is from B. So thank you, B, for sending this in. B writes, how do you cultivate greater connection to the Divine Mother, to step more into the Divine Feminine energy when you previously shoved your feminine in the shadow because your example of the feminine was a malicious mother with highly toxic traits? Oh, okay. So these questions are really similar. And so this would just be a kind of a different take on it. She goes on to write, it was safer for me to be in distorted masculine energy. I rejected the feminine and wished to place her back in the light. Good. Thank you. And then she goes on to write, learning to be less of a warrior and embracing my inner fairy princess. Well, come on, B, you're answering your own question here. So absolutely. We want to embrace, I love this, the inner fairy princess. I've never talked about the Divine Mother in relationship to our inner fairy princess. But let's roll with this. How do you cultivate a greater connection to the Divine Mother and step more into the divine feminine energy? Yeah. And so, the words I'm going to invite is through the doorway of trust. And, we've spoken about this a lot in the song. I spoke about this theme a lot, a year and a half ago. And I talked about object relations theory. And again, I really don't like that name, but basically the theory is a psychological theory, goes something like this. Whatever relationship you had with mom or dad, well, we tend to project that relationship onto life. That was like what the previous question was. But we also project it onto God. So if we had let me get this right, a malicious mother with highly toxic traits, we tend to project that. We project our malicious mother with highly toxic traits, onto the Divine Mother. And in this case, it's like, we couldn't be more wrong. And so, like right now, I'm going to invite us to open our hearts and to invite the grace of the Divine Mother down into our hearts, down into our bodies. I'm going to call forth the Divine Mother in the form of Holy Mother Mary. And as we welcome Mary into the room, you may notice this supreme heavenly sweetness and all encompassing love and compassion and inclusivity. The beautiful thing about Mary is there is not an ounce of judgment in Mary. Mary's like this ocean of warmth, of kindness, of gentleness. And she fully meets us wherever we're at. Wherever we're at. And so let's just take a moment and allow ourselves to be held and to be nurtured. And so when we have a toxic mom, we run from her, we hide from her. And when we've been a victim of shame, again, the same thing, we tend to run and hide because we're scared of mom. With Holy Mother Mary, I invite us to come to her with an absolute humility and to curl up in her lap. To curl up in her lap. And to allow anything hard, anything jaded within us to melt. To melt. And often when people come into contact with Mary, there's a feeling of just such compassion and such humility that it breaks those walls of distorted masculinity or trying to be tough or being guarded or whatever it is. Being a spiritual warrior, all this kind of thing. Again, with all of us here, I don't care how old you are. I want to invite you to see yourself as a child in the lap of Mary. Being held, being loved, being nurtured. And to get comfortable here. Being caressed by grace. Being caressed by grace. Allowing this grace to break down and break apart any of the false traits of ego, whether they're traits of fighting, or traits of shame, traits of upholding oneself, again with that like distorted masculinity. But sometimes, in order to receive this grace, we have to first put down the sword. We have to be humble enough to let ourselves be carried. Allow ourselves to be held and embraced. To be embraced. And so we're breathing, we're feeling, we're softening. And in the distorted masculine, there's this sense of, I'm right, everyone else is wrong, I have to fight for my seat at the table and all this kind of thing. But with Mary, she's not even going to give you a seat at the table. She's going to give you a seat in her lap. In her lap. In her lap. And she's going to hold you. She's going to nurture you. She will soothe you into a sweet submission. Submission and love. Submission into compassion. To being held. And from this space, the innocence of the fairy princess can arise. In this space, the innocence of the little prince, or whatever it is we are, just the innocence of our being can arise. Can arise. But when we're in the shadow of masculinity, there's a hardness, there's a sharpness, there's a jadedness. And there can be a feeling of flailing. A flailing. Like throwing punches in every direction. But as we sit in the lap of the Divine Mother, well, we just melt. We melt. We melt. And so we'll continue opening to the Divine Mother. And throughout our life, if you notice a harshness or a hardness within one's spirit, well, that's a sign that we need to soften. It's a sign we're taking the earthly plane way too seriously. It's a sign that we've been hurt by this world. And we need to call upon heavenly support. Heavenly support. You may also call upon earthly support. And, earthly support in this arena, I'll be talking to friends who care, or getting on a massage table and letting someone kind of tenderize and break up the rigidity and the armoring of the egoic identity, and letting oneself melt. So in the shadow of the masculine is, I'm going to fight for my seat. I'm going to do it all by myself. It's my way or the highway. Get out of my way. Me first. Of course, that's just the dance of ego. As spiritual beings, we're going to choose this path of trusting, of opening, of softening, of sweet surrender, and allowing ourselves to be carried. Now, I will say this, about the healthy masculine. Some of us experience so much pain, in this case from mom, and there's two questions about mom. Some of us experience so much pain from mom and or dad that we really lost trust in life, and we lost trust in this basic holding. And if that's us, it's going to require, just a gentle amount of courage. The courage to open, the courage to put down the sword, the courage to put down the fight, the courage to breathe softly and serenely into the egoic armory until it melts. Until it melts. Some of us are so jaded that we need to do some work on our own We can always open to the Divine Mother in the beginning, but some of us are so jaded, we don't experience her because there's so much walls between us and her. There's so much pain. And we need to love ourselves. We need to be kind with ourselves. We need to give ourselves permission to put on a tutu and dance around like a fairy princess for a little bit, to be a kid again, to be a kid again, to be a kid again. And I can say this, I had this experience actually right before the retreat. My daughter, she had her last day of school the other day, and I guess this was last weekend. But in Colorado, here in Durango, the general public doesn't always worship God. They worship the bicycle here. And so there's this big bike parade. There's a big bike race. But in the bike parade, there was all kinds of adults, pedaling on the river trail and, dressing up in all kinds of costumes. And a common costume is a tutu. So there was men and women alike, wearing pink and orange and yellow and green tutus and just allowing themselves to be kids again, allowing themselves to be kids, allowing themselves to play, allowing themselves not to be serious. And, Portland was another great town that used to do this all the time. They'd have all kinds of bike parades and they dress up in costumes. Portland would get a little bit more freaky. Sometimes they do the naked bike parade, and I'm not going to comment on that. I'm not going to get involved with that one, but if you want to wear a tutu and embrace your inner child, so that this innocence can come online. It'll be deeply healing for most of us. For most of us. Okay. Well, I want to thank you all so much for being here. I'm just going to look in the chat. I see that baby Lawrence took his first steps today. And so I'm going to say, yay, baby Lawrence. Way to go, big guy. I got to see this in person just the other day. I was at jiu-jitsu, and one of my buddies brought he's got like 3 or 4 kids, and the youngest one, she took her first steps. And my God, it was funny because her eyes were like so big and bright, and she was just like walking around like Godzilla. It was like a mix of like Godzilla and Frankenstein. She was just like boom, 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 and she was just like looking, just like in total awe that she was upright and walking around, and she knew like at any moment she might fall flat on her face, but boy did she keep herself up. It was just like boom, 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 and walking all over the place. And it was just so beautiful to see that in a child. And I hope that we can all see ourselves in this way, as we continue on this path of awakening. Like, we're going to screw it up. We're going to fall down. We're going to hit our head. We're going to stub our toe. We're going to put our foot in our mouth. Like, we're going to make mistakes, but it's okay to be human. It's okay to fail. We learn, we grow, we evolve through failure. And so please go out into this beautiful world, enjoy yourself, get in a little bit of good trouble. Get in a little bit of good trouble. And so be kind, be gentle in the coming days, especially those of you coming off retreat, but get in a little bit of good trouble. If you want to have a big bowl of ice cream or this or that, go for it. Get grounded, get integrated, be kind, be gentle, have a little fun in this big, beautiful world. So good to be with y'all. And hey, I'll see you all sometime next week. So much love. Okay. Bye for now.